My story this week comes from Euronews and also comes from the past. And it is that scientists at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, have, quote, taught spinach to send emails. Dubious at best. As I said, this comes from the past. This comes from a paper published by Nature in 2016, the title of which is Nitroaromatic Detection and Infrared Communications from Wild-Type Plants Using Plant Nanobionics. That might sound like a story like we're living in the future, but if I were to say this sentence to you, what do you think it means? Complementary metal oxide semiconductors, integrated circuits, and flash storage in consumer telemetry devices enable non-native functions in Homo sapiens.
I can tell you it means not much to me.
Are you talking about phones?
I am. Yeah. I'm talking about people can take pictures with their phones. That is a very long-winded way of saying people can take pictures with their phone. So when I'm talking about plant nanobionics aims to embed non-native functions to plants by interfacing them with specifically designed nanoparticles, what I'm saying is we kind of got some plants to do some stuff they weren't designed for.
That is a really good way of putting it.
So much of the experience of reading a scientific paper is going, what are they saying in like Latin or something?
Because you gotta be very specific in a science paper, but also it makes this huge barrier for entry where you've got to know a bunch of words.
Study the science codec.
Just pop a glossary at the end. What all the words mean?
So what they said here was they taught spinach to send emails. And my brain flew up with all these ideas of like, oh, how might they have done that? Turns out nothing to do with what they actually did. And also, plants are able to wirelessly relay this information back to the scientists. These are both all quotes. Also, kind of a very large stretching of the truth, or at least an oversimplification.
I mean, plants are wireless, though, aren't they? Just in general. As a rule, most plants tend to be wireless.
I've never had wired spinach.
No,
no, I haven't.
Unless you think roots are wired.
I would say the veins are wires as well.
Ooh.
We're not
blood
wireless,
wires.
The actual story really here is involving engineering and nanobionics. Now, Corey, do you know about nanobionics?
Nanobiology. Living things.
So nanobionics
nanobionics, sorry.
Is embedding tiny particles into plants to give them sort of abilities, or at least to make them do things they don't normally do. So the idea of this is that because plants are constantly exchanging gases and liquids with their environment, this potentially makes them brilliant for detecting things you don't want in the environment if you can get the plants to tell you that the stuff you don't want in the environment is there. So using this tiny nanobionic particle, they developed a spinach plant that was able to detect something called picric acid, which is a chemical commonly used in explosives. Now the plant, as normal, the plant uptakes nutrients and liquids and things from the soil and moves them up the stem towards the leaves. The tiny nano sensors that they made are then put inside the leaves of the spinach plant. So when the picric acid, which is the chemical they're looking for in this specific application, reaches the leaves, this causes this little nanoparticle thing that they've created to remit infrared radiation from the leaves, which is then detected by a camera on a tiny computer called a Raspberry Pi, which can then send an email to the scientists to let them know that the explosive has been detected.
So my imagining of a tiny little spinach leaf with a tiny little laptop typing away is not exactly accurate.
It's just slapping with its little spinach leaves.
So as far as I can tell, the spinach plant is just doing what the spinach plant already does. And they have injected it with things that react to the presence of the chemical compound they're trying to create. Now, what makes plants incredible at being, for example, a bomb detecting device is that plants power themselves. They have long roots that go into the ground so they can detect very far down in the environment. And whatever you're trying to detect, they also move that chemical up all by themselves in the way that the plant normally functions, which means you don't have to build all these complex things. You just use the way that nature is already happening, which is what a lot of our science does, is it sort of just exploits things that nature's already doing and sort of nudges them towards something we want them to do, rather than out and out designing something completely from scratch.
It's like a vaccine versus a drug, a different kind of drug.
Exactly.
You're utilizing something that already exists to get an end.
Exactly. The thing that it reminded me of was CRISPR-Cas9, which we did an episode about, which is like we want to replace certain genes, and rather than inventing something that does that, we found a thing that already does it in nature, and we just sort of give it a little nudge to get it to do the things we want it to do. So right now, this is the test that they've done, but the lead researcher, Professor Michael Strano, says plants know that there's going to be a drought long before we do. They can detect small changes in the properties of soil and water potential. From what I understand about this, plants know a lot of things, very much know, in inverted commas, a lot of things, and what chemical signals they give off in those scenarios, we can potentially use them to detect anything that plants can detect in ways that we don't necessarily understand and wouldn't know how to build from scratch ourselves. But my one little bugbear with this is scientists have not taught spinach to send emails. Not at all. And I was furious about this because I loved the headline. I was so excited. And I was like, scientists have not taught. That's just not what's happened.
How do you teach spinach?
Well,
Teach.
You've got to...
Being a heavy word, doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
Imagine I invented a chemical which glows in the presence of adrenaline and noradrenaline, which are released when you're angry. And I inject it into my cat, and my cat then glows whenever her bloodstream contains adrenaline and noradrenaline. And then I have a camera on the side of my kitchen or something that looks for whether my cat is glowing, and then that camera reports to a computer, and that computer sends me an email saying your cat's angry, and then Euronews writes an article saying Luke Cutforth taught his cat to send emails.
Yeah, sounds pretty bang on.
That wouldn't be what had happened.
Scientists use spinach to send emails doesn't quite have the same kind of...
Yeah.
No, it doesn't have the same punch.
No, it doesn't.
Like nowhere near.
Nowhere near, not at all.
It's the imagining of the spinach sending the email.
Yeah, it's a
Going,
little spinach
time
keyboard.
to send my daily email to the scientists.
Okay, yeah. But the real invention here is nothing to do with the emails. The emails are a very simple thing that's happening on a computer. The real invention here is this incredible nanotechnology. That's the invention.
A lot of times the wrong thing will be whatever the public won't be interested in sort of nanotech. I mean, not really. They won't be interested in sort of nanotech in plants to detect. They don't care about that.
No.
They care about spinach doing things that people do. You know, like that's what they care about.
Yeah.
I don't think people recognize or give plants enough credit, you know, for how much they do. Because we think of plants as just being basically a step up from rocks, you know?
Yeah,
Like
rocks that grow.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Rocks that grow. Rocks sit in their environment and they kind of, you know, just exist as rocks.
Yeah.
They don't really respond to anything. They're just rocks. Whereas plants respond a lot to their environment. They can detect a lot in their environment. I think we kind of think of them as having like sort of no sensation, but they do. You know, they send out stuff when they're damaged. They can respond to stimulus. They're pretty cool, I think, plants.
There is one last thing I'd like to share, which is, okay, I've crapped on Euronews quite a lot here because that's who popularized this story that was originally published in 2016. And all the other articles are linking back to Euronews because they've created this hype. But I would like to say Politico ran this story with the headline,
really?
A glimpse into a terrible dystopian future with spinach emails. Shut up.
Wait, what is the dystopian future? Are they worried that the spinach will start sending us spam? Like, you know,
if we tell them to send emails, maybe we can teach them to use guns, and then there'll be a spinach uprising.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all you need to do is put it over heat for a little bit and then it'll wilt, you know.
It is literally what you said. So the article says, it seems Popeye or possibly some scientists have turned leafy green veg into sensors that are capable of detecting explosive material, like I've just said. While this is clearly extremely clever and potentially excellent news, it's only a matter of time before we're being bombarded with spam emails from spinach, or maybe from actual spam, offering cheap car insurance or the promise of untold riches from Nigerian princes.
Why would you use spinach to send spammy? Like, okay, what is the spinach detecting? If you got spinach sitting in your house, right? Here's what the only way I could see this being remotely viable. You have a spinach plant sitting in your house somehow that is detecting something about you, and it sends spam emails depending on what it detects. That's the only reason that I could figure out.
Every time you blink, it sends an email.
Exactly, something like that. But put it this way, it would be far easier just to use some, like, you know, computer code to track people's movements online, what they're clicking on and whatnot, and send them spam emails based on that. That's what I think we should do instead of using Spinach, to be honest.
The real dystopian future is the one we're already living in.
If you enjoyed that clip, head over to patreon.com/Sci Guys where you can find the full show. Or you can stay here and catch up on old Sci Guys episodes. Or you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook at Sci Guys Pod to find out when we're doing more live shows.